Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me and allowing me to continue to be your daily advocate. If you're new here or you're not subscribed for any reason, please do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button. Thank you to all of you who have been watching and following me for so long. It truly means a lot, and I'm glad that I can be this person.
I want to start this video by saying that, I've seen all kinds of, these people, these XRP people, they think that Russia's going to start using XRP and all this. I'm seeing all that talk. That's not where I'm coming from here, folks. Where I'm coming from is this whole Ukraine thing and all this. Whether Putin really wants to go in and take over Ukraine, I guess maybe he does. But I can tell you this, even if it's just a part of it, I can tell you this for sure. This tweet that I put out right here, I believe, even if it's not the whole plan, it's part of the plan by Putin and probably by China too. And I'll tell you something else. I was told a long time ago, I won't say by who, but I was told a long time ago that XRP was created to replace the petrodollar, be a world bridge currency, and ultimately to prevent World War III. And there's something I do believe, 1,000%. I do believe that the United States, China, Russia, and a lot of these countries got together a long time ago to work out whatever this new system is going to be. I do believe that, and you're listening to somebody who has made 2 to 3 videos on this topic every day for over 3 years. Okay, so just telling you what I believe. Now, this guy that tweeted this out: weaponizing the SWIFT international payment system might cut Russia off, but risks eroding the dollar-dominated global financial system. Indeed, it will give rise to alternative systems developed by China and Russia. Just another example why sanctions are counterproductive. And I said, you have to wonder if Putin wanted them to cut him off, wargaming the eventual disconnection from SWIFT. This is where the world is headed one way or another. Now let me tell you what I think, folks, or maybe I'll say it a different way. If I was running the United States, if I was president of the United States, I don't care who it is, whether it was Trump or Biden or whoever, this is just me being a reasonable guy. I wouldn't be stupid. I would know that the U.S., nobody keeps their status as the world reserve currency for any period of time. Well, or at least they do for, I would say that probably 100 years would be a record, wouldn't it? I'm not sure how long a country has held that status, but it's not forever, okay? Everybody knows that. A president would know that. What I would do, if it was me, is I would approach these countries, China and Russia, and I would sit down with them and I would say, look, I know that we're not going to get to keep this status forever, and so going into this digital age, let's sit down and create some kind of a shared situation where everybody wins. And I believe that that's what all this is really about. I believe we're going to have some sort of a shared reserve currency, maybe some basket of currencies or something. There's a reason that Ripple came along, and I'll show you in a minute. I've been around a while. I'm 48 years old now. I graduated in finance, got an MBA. I worked at Morgan Stanley for a while as a financial advisor. I'm not one now, by the way. I've been around a while, and I can tell you this. I have never, not one time in my entire life, heard any company, not one, and I think SWIFT was founded in the year of my birth, 1974. In all that time, I have never heard anybody, not one company, not one CEO of a company, not one executive of a company, say that their goal was to replace the SWIFT system. Not one. Until Ripple came along. And since Ripple came along, and I actually put a video together for you on that, I have heard them say this over and over and over and over and over. The CEO, the chairman, different people in the company, over and over and over. Just this one company. Not only have I seen that, but I've seen the Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO, get on stage with what was then the current, I think he was the CEO of SWIFT, and sit there and have a conversation about it. Who gets to be on that stage? Why would the SWIFT CEO be on that stage? I always want, I mean, and at the same time, I've seen these guys in the room with all of these people, all the players in this game. None of that's a coincidence. And it makes you wonder if all the world's staged, folks. That's all I'm saying. Now, so, is that all just talk? No, it's not all just talk. What you're looking at here, I've shown before on this channel, but there's a lot of new people here, and especially in the middle of this Russia thing, this is extremely interesting to watch. This was called Digital Currency Wars. It was a simulation they did at Harvard University back on November 19th, 2019. I'm showing you this, and this does go firmly in the All the World's a Stage file. I'm showing this because if you believe that the United States did not and does not know that they can't use this SWIFT system to impose sanctions and all of that today, tomorrow, and going forward, they've known this for a long time, folks. That's why when I'm watching all this, I'm kind of thinking, okay, so we're watching a big staged geopolitical game here. Or not, I'm not saying the invasion's a game. I'm just saying that could be real, and then they could, you know, who knows, Russia could have said, well, when we finally do what we want to do, which is invade Ukraine, then we'll use that as also as an opportunity to test our end, or who knows. But all I know is there's a lot more going on than just an invasion of Ukraine. And the USA has known about this and been planning for this. If they were doing this in a digital war game simulation that people were going to see in public in 2019, I've always said, what were they doing in the 10, 20 years before that? Because they knew this day would come. Listen to this. And of all people, this is Gary Gensler that's talking about this.
But for Gary, so it is the case, just to confirm what the Secretary of Defense and Treasurer is saying, the Chinese would have visibility into these transactions.
They absolutely
and
would.
Is it that they know what they're seeing when the Chinese are transacting?
The North Koreans are transacting. The only difference, with all respect, Mr. Secretary, is Alipay and WeChat Pay are used in the retail space, and Secretary of Treasury is absolutely right. They have that visibility. But now it's a third party, a country, North Korea, using that along with a new system called a cross-border payment system, a CIPS, which is competing with SWIFT. So they have a new messaging system that they stood up in 2016, as you recall. Yes. And that new messaging system, I don't think it will undermine the role of the US dollar in international commerce, but it absolutely puts to bed that SWIFT cannot be used as an instrument of
so this is really important.
I'd like to know about the CIPX. This basically, am I correct in understanding that it is the Chinese equivalent to SWIFT?
They actually took the software from SWIFT with the memorandum of understanding. They took that software and created their own messaging system.
And are there other countries that are using it or might potentially use it? And is there a tipping point at which point the global economy will be, in fact, bifurcated?
Again, I think we're decades away from China developing the robust capital markets and the legal systems to compete with the US dollar. But to your question, yes, other countries have adopted the CIPS. Russia has back in...
Oh, Russia has? You don't say.
19, they entered into a bunch of agreements. And so they're moving value, money, outside of the SWIFT system. And more, all respect to the State Department, we won't be able to use SWIFT. We've sort of weaponized SWIFT, but we won't be able to use it that much longer.
All right. So, if you believe that the U.S. and probably all of these countries haven't been working together to take us into the next 100 years, then do a Federal Reserve 2.0 or whatever you want to call it, Bretton Woods 2.0, then I may get in the igloo manufacturing business, because anybody believes that the U.S. was not prepared for this, you would be great purchasers for my igloos in South Georgia that melt within 24 hours. There would have to be a tremendous profit margin for me on that. Okay, I wanted to remind everybody, this is from Link2. They have a screenshot here of the companies that are currently available on the platform. They have Ripple, Uphold, Link2, Bloomreach, Abra, Whoop, Tradeshift, Vero, Workrise, Thrasio. So I'll put a link to this at the top of the description of this video, so you can, that Ripple keeps running out, so you might want to, if you're interested in that one, you might want to check it out first. All right. So one thing I noticed this morning, and the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, well, that's just coincidence. They're just using that word or whatever. First thing I saw is they're all of a sudden putting XRP on the board. As of a week ago, I was watching their channel, and they had things like Dogcoin on the screen, but not XRP. Okay. Now, then I saw this. Watch this clip.
All right, so it was a top bank in a major. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I believe you. Okay, thanks. See you.
When we come back, we will talk much more about SWIFT and the ripple effects throughout the global financial
So
system.
she said we'll talk more about SWIFT and the ripple effects. Okay, talking about the Russia situation. Then I saw this, and it wasn't one time I saw this. It was like one time I saw it, and then 30 minutes later I saw it again. Stock set to slide, ripple effects of Russia sanctions. So they've got. So I'm beginning to think that they're at a minimum. CNBC is trying to tweak the whole Ripple and XRP thing. All right. So we had this morning. The Russian central bank raised its key interest rate to 20% from 9.5% on Monday in an emergency move to save the ruble from falling as major countries cut off support to Moscow. Now, folks, I've seen all kinds of reporting on TV about, has Vladimir Putin lost it, and they're going to nuclear whatever, DEFCON whatever, and they're being prepared, told they're nuclear whatever to prepare. I don't believe all that, folks. I believe that this is all a geopolitical game that this guy's playing. Now, what do I know? I'm just saying, this guy's no dummy. He's been around a long time. Nobody wants something like nuclear war. I think that he is more interested in his Russian legacy than anything else. Now, then there's this. The digital yuan could emerge as an alternative to SWIFT and other U.S.-dominated systems. And that's what they say. Putin's war could just be the push the project needs. And then there was this. Charles Gasparino, check this out. Wall Street execs are working Sunday night brainstorming the economic consequences of ramped up sanctions against Russia, including exclusion from SWIFT. They believe impact of the SWIFT move is muted somehow because it excludes payments related to oil. But executives tell me there's a growing chance of stagflation, definitely in Europe and even here via higher oil prices and commodity prices since Russia produced so much grain. Time frame this could last, worst case I'm hearing, is 2 years. Okay? So, then I retweeted this, I said there's only one company in the world that has been talking about replacing the SWIFT system for the past 5 years. Only one, and it's Ripple. And then I saw this reply, and I had missed this, but Stuart Alderati a few months back had said, he's talking about the SEC case against Ripple, he says, because after all, that's why the SEC plays the delay card and uses it to their advantage. So much for justice delayed is justice denied. How about publicly committing to move the Ripple case as, quote, swiftly as possible with no more delays? Interesting choice of word. And then, because you are my appreciated audience, I put together the Swift greatest hits with all of the people from Ripple, because a lot of you have missed all of this the last few years. But don't you worry, we went back and we got it. Here's 5 minutes to put things in perspective for you. Strap in.
An internet system. So we need that internet of value to be developed. And that's what we spend our time working on, is a replacement for SWIFT and correspondent banking. How do you get all of the payment providers, all of the wallets onto ILP? And then how do you use XRP as on-demand liquidity so that all of these providers don't have to keep balances all over the world because the process is so inefficient. We think that's the winning kind of killer app. And then I think last group talked about a Cambrian explosion. Yeah. Then you get that Cambrian explosion.
Well, I think what we're doing and executing on a day-by-day basis is, in fact, taking over SWIFT. In that, we've now signed up, well over 100 banks. Some of the largest SWIFT-enabled banks in the world are now using Ripple's technology. Just last week, we saw a remittance company who's using Ripple's technology. They reduced the price per transaction to their consumers from $20 per transaction to $2 per transaction, and they saw an 800% increase in usage overnight. that's the type of dynamic that SWIFT isn't able to support that we're able to address right now. And that's something we saw just in the last couple of weeks. So we certainly want to see banks succeed in this new world order and take advantage of these technologies. To the extent we can work with SWIFT to do that, then that's great.
The payments, you have north of $20 trillion going cross-border each year. It is fraught with error rates, and it's slow, it's expensive. For me, it's a classic like Silicon Valley going up against the big behemoth Goliath, but it's so broken. I mean, when I go talk to banks, it's a beautiful thing for me because banks don't like SWIFT. They're frustrated with SWIFT. Their customers don't like SWIFT. And that's a great place to be when you're selling into that. So.
And SWIFT, it seems, has responded to what Ripple is doing. How does their new technology, the response that they've created, compare to what Ripple's doing?
So they changed they sort of pressed on their customers to credit payments more quickly, and they added an acknowledgement at the end of the payment. So it used to be fire and forget. Now they send a message back from the end when the payment's acknowledged, and that does address some of the pain points that people had. But I think, there are a couple things it doesn't address. So one of them is it doesn't enable settlement at the time of payment. So if you think that that's an important thing, it kind of attacks our sort of submarine strategy of we'll give you a better payment system, and it can settle at the time of payment. But even if you don't care about that, it's still a better payment system. So obviously the bidirectional messaging and everything, it's still a better payment system. But if you can take away the major pain points, maybe that sort of attacks our strategy of saying we're going to take away your major pain points. We can take away some of those pain points too. But it doesn't fix the fundamental problem. It's kind of like if a music company tried to combat the iPod by dropping the price of CDs or making them hold more data or something. The fundamental problem is the settlement.
What does that mean? I was talking to the CEO of one of the largest banks in Canada, and they were exiting their correspondent relationship in Brazil. Mm-hmm. It's expensive for them to hold Brazilian reals, and they're like, look, we don't have enough demand, so now we're going to use a correspondent bank. Now, if they could use XRapid into Brazil, they don't have to have the pre-funded money, they don't have the expense, and they can still solve their customers' problem that need to do business in Brazil. So I think these are all examples of it is a journey. I think that it is nascent. I will also say that I'm going to send a case of champagne to David Marcus, the guy who runs the Libra. The reason is this week will probably be the best week of signed contracts at Ripple ever.
Right. Wow.
It has been a massive call to action because again, Facebook kind of came out and said we don't need Western Union anymore.
Right.
Well, if you're a bank, if you're Western Union, you kind of, that's interesting. And I think the banks realize that if Facebook is going to be a competitor in this space, they can't depend upon a technology like SWIFT to compete in the marketplace. Correspondent banking was built decades ago. It hasn't really evolved. It's based upon SWIFT messaging between correspondent banks. The cost of supporting that infrastructure, frankly, has gone up. One of the things that changed after the financial crisis of 2009, 2010, it used to be if the Bank of Dan and the Bank of Brad wanted to do cross-border transactions, we'd have what's called Nostro Vostro accounts. It used to be that when I put cash at the Bank of Dan, that counted positively towards my capital ratio. After that financial crisis, we decided that trusting other deposits at other banks may not be as trustworthy as we thought. And so now it doesn't count. And so banks have contracted. The correspondent banking relationships have gone down by 50% in the last 15 years. Yet global cross-border transactions continue to grow. So our view is, look, these are technologies from decades ago. We can upgrade them with today's technology, with internet-based technologies, and make this real-time transactions. You do a SWIFT transaction, there's banks saying, there's a market maker saying, I'll lock in that rate. I'll take the volatility risk for the next 2 or 3 days. With XRP, you don't have to do that because it settles so quickly.
Value exchange, and that's really the mission that we're trying to accomplish. What does that mean for financial institutions? Well, it means that banks remain the custodians, but they can also correspond with each other directly, and they can use this real-time settlement system without putting up capital on both sides, and with getting maximum competition for that exchange of value. It's a fundamental structural change in correspondent banking. The networks, whether that be SWIFT or Visa or Earthport, they can also use those same benefits for their customers. And then for regulators, we actually think this is also a big step forward because you get so much more transparency. It's so much easier to track sort of degrees of separation tools in real time. We think it actually shortens the time it takes to catch the bad guys.
All right, so that, and then also there's this one. This is a classic. The first part of this is Chris Larson, and the second part is one of the guys
10 years
from
out
Ripple.
on the financial crisis, we still don't have the infrastructure perhaps to prevent the next one. And I think this is where digital assets can really help, because an efficient digital asset can really solve some of the key problems in global liquidity. You know, the world's got trillions and trillions of dollars tied up in liquidity just to get around how clunky the movement of value is around the world. If with a really efficient digital asset, something like XRP, and that's what we believe will be the most efficient, you can now reduce trillions and trillions of capital from being tied up. So you can make those transfers instantly as a bank or as a payment provider or as an enterprise without having to have money pre-positioned all over the world.
So some people have heard me say this before, but I'll throw it out to the audience. What is Interledger's total addressable market size? All the money. Nobody wanted to feed it. Yeah, it's all the money, because what we're really talking about with this idea of the Internet of Value is creating a single global payment network that connects literally everyone and processes maybe not 100%, but 90+% of all the money.
So enjoy your day, everybody. I'm always here for you. Leave any comments or questions below, and be sure to subscribe. But thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you. Enjoy your day, and I always have your back. So thanks so much, everybody.